How is it going, nerders and MCOM Disposal Squad fans? Scott the Masked Nerder here, and we are starting a new little mini-series for you. This is just sort of going to be a series where, since the PTFO Director's Cut Tournament, our first round is this weekend, we decided, well, we're practicing with our squads a little bit. We'll share with you what we're trying to share with them and how we're trying to prepare. Unfortunately for us, we only had 3 of us last night. Our 4th didn't make it. And we just started last night, Wednesday, and our match is hopefully Sunday against a very strong team, Almost Vanished. So, we're doing what we can. Before we get into it, on the screen, that's just some gameplay from our practices. Obviously, we weren't playing against the best teams in the world. I think they were good, and I think, we worked well together too, and it sort of shows. So now let's get into it. As we're deciding what we want to go over first, we decided communication is key. We planned that off in the beginning, and then as we're honing all the other skills, we'll still be practicing our communication. Especially in a game like Squad Rush, but I think on most games in a game like Battlefield 3 where teamwork is so important, specifically Squad Rush though, when you have maybe 3 or 4 routes for the enemies to take, and you only have 3 or 4 people, you're split up wide. You need to have good communication so that you can all stay coordinated throughout this whole effort, know when to go where, what's being watched, and so on. I've said it a lot in my other videos too, that teamwork is overpowered. Teamwork is not possible without good communication in my eyes. So, you gotta start there. So, when we're talking communication, we're not just talking callouts, but if you've watched some of my callout series, because communication is something I work on myself, which I'll link that series for you. I do a bunch of callout videos. I'll be in the description, and I'll try to put the playlist up on the screen as well for you. But some of these things are things that I've mentioned in that series. We're going to start with some of the basic communication tips that I try to use. And these are using some common sayings or directional sayings like, he's behind you, or over to your left, or over to your right, over there. Those kind of things don't do very much for you, because when you get turned around in a match, who knows which way you're looking, can really get confused there. So what we try to do is we try to organize those left and rights that maybe you could define, but we try to organize them better with things like water side, river side, street side. Use that, and then attacker side, defender side, and you can shorten those too. But use those to sort of coordinate that north, south, east, west, but you'll never have to look at a compass to get coordinated. And now if you memorize which way is north, south, east, west, that's pretty short too, easy to use. But giving terms rather than left, right behind you really helps out. And the next one, which is a little harder to learn, and comes from practice, is when to call out and when to not call out. Because you don't always want to be saying things on the mic. You got in-game sounds, which can be really helpful. And you get your teammates trying to tell you other things too. So if you're saying something that's not very important and drowning someone else out, that can really affect you in the match. I would say, possibly with only 4 people in the chat on a Squad Rush, maybe not such a big issue. But, it's still important to use communication as effectively as possible. So let me give you just a few examples, which is sort of hard without specific in-game examples that I can show you, but just trying to generalize some things that maybe aren't always important. So maybe saying, oh, I'm going to go for this guy's dog tags. Well, great, but that doesn't really tell us anything. How about focus more on, did you kill him? Where was he at? Do you see more? So guy down on top rock. That's good. How about things like, I'm going to reposition? Well, that's a little extra too. We don't really need to know that you're going to reposition. So you could say where you are and where you're looking. So you don't need to tell us the fact that you are repositioning. But when you are repositioned and where you're looking, where it's clear, that could come in handy. There's even times where you might not need to say anything. If you see an enemy and your team's focused on this enemy and you have someone else spawn on him, if they're in the open and your team can see, if there's a lot going on, there's no point in really calling that other guy out. This is all sort of dependent. It's all relative on the game. If there's a lot going on, it's hectic, you have more of a hard time trying to fit words in. You should try to only do the most essential things. If the game's slower and you have more time, more details is probably never going to hurt. Sort of on the same topic as there is, trying to shorten the things you say too, so you're giving more opportunity for other people to talk. So some good things to shorten, oh, I just went up and killed a guy in upper red. Well, that's good, but if they're all dead there, maybe say upper red clear. You can shorten it. You can only say the essential stuff, because after you said you killed a guy, you might come back and say it was clear. Or, maybe they don't need to know if that's clear. It's just not really pertinent. But you can see from that area, you can see something else. So you tell them that area is clear. Really, the basics of this is you only want to get the essential stuff out. And the most important thing to have coordinated in the match is how many enemies are dead, so you know how many are still alive, so that when you kill the guy. And also, where are the enemies that are still alive? Knowing their location. Those are the crucial things. Now, if you don't see enemies and they're still alive, you need to also be adding in what rooms are clear so that your team knows not to have to look there. Those really are the basic things, you know, objective clear, red room clear, anyone got eyes, something like that, short and sweet, to the point. That's the most important things you want to be communicating in the match. And of course, if you get a squad wipe on your own, that's something you should definitely be yelling all across the mic. Alright, so I think most of you probably already know these. I used them in sort of the example a second ago, but just some shorthands you can use. You and your team can come up with so many of these if you want it, and there's a lot out there. They're so basic that I don't want to go over too many of them. But just know that there's things you can use, like on my X, indicating your dead body, got eyes, indicating do you have visual on the enemies, things like that. You know, a lot of those help shorten as well. Alright, so after you fine-tune all those basics, it's time to work on specific callouts. I said, I have a callout series. You can check that out. I sort of explain how I go about it. You can make your own. There's websites out there. You don't need to follow mine specifically. So all I'm going to say here, rather than specific callout, is how we specifically went about callouts for these maps on Squad Rush. And hopefully it's something you can take and apply to any map, any game mode. As I already said, we sort of first define north, south, east, west, or left, right. We give those titles, we give those names. That's where we start with. Great. After that, we're going to sort of name the common routes. You want to make sure you know where the attackers are going to come from or where defenders might be coming from. And give those routes a name so that you can quickly say if you're watching an entire route rather than specific locations with the callout. So going back to North Shore Canal, some common routes we came up with, you know, Dirt Street, Road, Wide Canal sort of indicating going around a garage. But that's just stuff we indicated. You can come up with your own and you sort of know where you're watching. Okay, now you get the routes. What's next? Look for the major structures in the game. These are also the high traffic areas. You know, usually if there's a building, it's a major structure, and it's probably got a lot of rooms where you'd probably see enemies. So we go around looking on the major structures. We're looking at garages, offices, any containers, or maybe even some major head glitch spots that are there. We give those names so we can indicate that area generally on the map. Not going too specific, like naming every single part of it. And now, remember with callouts, you don't have to be descriptive. I tend to go more descriptive in my calls just because my memory is so bad, I have a hard time. So I go for things more like canal garage, street garage, things like that. But if you guys have a good memory, man, you don't need to add those. You could say they're over at 1, they're at 2. You could just give it a number if you can remember that. Or you could go garage 1, garage 2. Or you could go colors, blue garage, red garage. You know, they're over at red, they're over at blue. You can shorten these as much as you want to work for you and your team. Just got to make sure they are things that you will remember and you'll keep in your head. So great, we've oriented our team, we got the major structures, we know what routes are coming from. Lastly, in our call out scheme is the objective area, and this is where we go detailed. You know, this is really where those tough matches are going to be decided. You're going to be fighting for the objective. You got defenders trying to disarm it, or attackers trying to save the disarm or get the plant, and it can get very hectic. So in our opinion, to get the best result here, it's to be detailed. And that means if there's 4 doorways leading into objective, we name those. So we can call out quickly which door the enemies are coming from. How about if there's a window that's got a really good line of sight on the objective? We name that window so that we can tell someone, I got eyes from that position. So if we're trying to tell them we have cover there. Or if an enemy's there shooting in, we want that stuff named. Also, when we're in there, we're looking at how about any nooks, crannies, corners the enemies can camp in. We name those corners, we name those spots, because we want to know if we're running in there for a last minute disarm, plant, whatever, and it's really close, you don't want to be looking around in that room. You want to have your sights sort of aimed in the direction the enemy is supposedly at. Given they're all moving, so you don't want to get tunnel vision, but having those spots named really is going to help you on the long run and give your team that upper advantage. And there you go. You set those callouts, you set those communication guidelines in place, and you're good to go on those very tough matches. Now, it's a lot easier to sort of set those in place than it is to make them second nature, and that's where practice comes in. And that's why we put this first in our practice series, because we thought we can work through this as we work on everything else we're going to work on. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. You'll stay tuned for the next episode. Hopefully they're coming very soon, like tomorrow. We hope. Alright, happy gaming, everyone.